We call the roll?
This is roll call for joint revenue. Senator Case,
Present.
Senator Dockstader,
Excused.
Senator Ide,
Here.
Senator Pappas,
Here.
Representative Brown,
Here.
Representative Campbell,
Excused.
Representative Lean,
Here.
Representative Lucas, Representative Riggins,
Here.
Representative Storer,
Excused.
Representative Stivar,
Excused.
Representative
Excused.
Worf,
Here.
Chairman McEwen,
Present.
Chairman Locke.
Present.
You guys have a quorum.
Well, let's get started with Representative Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first topic I'm going to bring up, we don't have it here in front of us yet, but it's the exemption reporting requirement. It was House Bill 155 during the session. It didn't get looked at during the session. And so what it does is it requires those corporations and entities that are getting tax exemptions to report. The way the bill is written is that if they don't report their exemption, they would lose the exemption for that year plus the prior year. So this is the topic I think would be a good topic for us to look at, find out why they're not reporting their exemptions, and then look at putting a requirement on there. So that was the first topic I'd like to look at. The second one we have in front of us, this is wind turbines and related infrastructure property tax change from agriculture to industrial. And what I'd like to look at here is working on a formula for changing that property tax from agriculture over to industrial property tax using the road infrastructure that cattle cannot graze on, as well as the footprint of the turbines, and coming up with a formula that we can use to tax those as industrial rather than agriculture. Thank you.
Okay, before we move on, does anybody have any questions with what Representative Brown has said? Anybody in the audience want to comment on those two topics? Senator Case.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I have a couple topics on the issue of energy taxation. And the reason is we've left hanging, and I don't feel we did a great job of looking at the idea of generation tax last year. It is a complicated tax, but it would allow Wyoming to kind of move into a new century, so to speak, and handle all the changing mixes of generation and things, and not and provide for really enormous revenues. There was a working group that looked at the legalities of generation tax in Wyoming, and there's a fellow that would come brief us. His name is Katowicz. Am I saying that right, Josh? Robert. I always mess his name up, but he's a lawyer with a firm in New York. He and a local firm here advised us, provided advice about the Commerce Clause and about other issues with regard to taxing electricity, and cleared the way for Wyoming to tax with a generation tax. Really, the complication parts are in all the offsets. And we have this situation right now where with new data centers coming in and local governments enjoying sales tax revenue off the electricity for data centers, and that electricity could be enormous. It could exceed the entire amount of electricity sold in Wyoming. That's just it is astounding. And the distribution of that is not something that anybody ever envisioned. And to have that revenue be focused into just one local area of the state, I think is inappropriate, because this is really a statewide issue. And we could use revenue perhaps from like the sales tax on very large electrical loads and use that to fund local distributions. It's going to be that big. And I hope we would pay attention to that. So in the electricity area, kind of look at the generation tax, maybe hear from the attorney and relook at the study that was done before. Think about the different wrinkles and sharing mechanisms to implement electricity tax and who would be paying it. You know, for example, the new round of data centers, they're often, our president has said they need to bring their own electricity. And some of them are talking about doing exactly that, but they do it in a relationship that I think is still within the nexus of us being able to tax the electricity produced, just like everybody else. So anyway, that's that one, Mr. Chairman. I think I've got the next one with problematic gaming and program funding. And this lady is going to help us with that if that's okay.
Okay,
Oh, and I didn't mean to cut off questions. I'm so sorry.
real
yeah.
quick, Senator Case. What was the House bill we had on this that died?
It was originally, I think it was. Sorry, Mr. Chairman. I think it was House Bill 200,
300?
300, sorry. House Bill 300 was on that one, I believe. Does that sound right, Senator?
It does, although subject to check, Mr. Chairman. And there was another Senate file, it was my own bill on the distribution of sales tax on large loads. And I think that's related. That didn't make the threshold to get introduced this session, but it had some strength.
So what's the Senate file number?
They're going to look it up for me.
Mr. Chairman, the Senate file number is Senate File 76, Distribution of Taxes on Large Electrical Loads.
Okay, so any questions on this topic, committee? Anybody in the audience? I think on that, we'll look at in a second. We'll look at those two bills and the whole topic as a whole. Go ahead, Representative Lean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That is also one of the topics that I put in, and I just want to make sure that this committee is aware that I would like to make sure that the intention is not to add an extra burden to our Wyoming residents on that tax, that instead we tax the end rate users. So there's a net zero on our local electricity bills.
I think Senator Case would love that.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, there's definitely a mechanism for doing that, using the generation tax and then forgiving the sales tax in most instances across the state. It's a matter of making the numbers work at that point because there's a lot of sales tax revenue off electricity. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Should we go to the
Okay,
next one?
Let's move to the next one. Senator Case.
Mr. Chairman, I've had past couple of years, I've had experiences where I've had run an encounter with people that have developed gambling addictions that have ruined their lives, literally ruined their lives. One lady went to jail or was arrested. I ended up hiring her. She's a friend of mine, and helped her to work through that. And she paid all the money back and everything, but she was in a position of authority in a local community, and she abused that position all because of a gambling addiction. And then another person I know also worked for me at one time. So it's amazing. And in Fremont County, the casinos are very attractive. Of course, they're not anything regulated by our gambling commission. But problem gaming is really hard. So I tried to look into what the resources are and how you can get resources. If there's a local Gamblers Anonymous, on and on and on, there's really very little that people can rely on. And this kind lady, Miss Semino, approached me and we talked about this together, and I'd like to turn my time over to her.
Real quick, I have a question.
Yes, Mr.
Is
Chairman.
this topic in labor and health or anywhere else?
This topic is, I was asked to submit this topic to 4 separate committees. This is a highly, this topic has been highly requested by various legislators, Mr. Chairman.
So you have 4 committees here in it?
I do. I was asked to submit it to,
Get 5.
Quadruple mirror bills. I see it coming.
Mm.
yes. Ideally, Mr. Chairman, we would like it in one committee. We do believe that it makes the most sense to either be in the Department of Revenue or Department of Health. It has also been submitted to travel as they were discussing kind of how this impact would happen with counties and municipality budgets. And then I was also requested to put it in for transportation. Ideally, that's why we're here to discuss it today with the Department of Revenue. As the good senator said, the issue of problematic gaming has dramatically increased over the last several years as our gaming and gambling institutions have also increased. We recognize that that is a huge need, not just in preventative, but also in treatment, that this is a two-sided issue as far as preventing as well as treating what is already there. The biggest issue that came from House Bill 171, which did not make it through introduction, was that the concern was taking away funds from counties and municipalities. We share that concern. We recognize that this is a new issue, a growing issue, and that money is needed not just for preventative for problematic gambling, but also preventative for suicide prevention, tobacco prevention. And so what we are looking for is how do we take gaming commissions and use it to fund both prevention and treatment in addition to what is already there. We do have some options for you in the interim topic as far as fully funding the 988 Suicide Lifeline, as well as adding funds to preventative and to the behavioral health division as well. And with that, I stand for question.
Real quick, Senator Pappas. You're the chair of transportation.
Yes,
Would you rather see it here or there?
I'd rather see it here or in labor. Transportation, we're going to take an issue on mental health, but it's really as it relates to the military.
Mhm.
It would be better off here or labor and health.
Well, we're down to 3 now. Representative Lean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know that leadership has had some discussions about putting gaming with a standing committee, and wherever that standing committee goes, I believe this topic should go with it. Having sat on the select committee this last interim, I recognize that I helped Representative Johnson draft this House Bill 171, and we worked with the Gaming Commission, and there is a plan there that would allow for better treatment for our Wyoming citizens. As far as the funding mechanism of where this entity would like it to go, that's a policy decision and that's not within the bill. But enabling the Wyoming residents to be able to better receive the help that they get with the 300,000 that gets set aside for problem gaming and gambling in the state of Wyoming, I would like to see it go with the committee, the standing committee that receives gaming.
I tend to agree, but I also think maybe we'll at least visit it in this committee for educational purposes. And being on the gaming committee, I haven't seen any committee meetings yet. Maybe I got kicked off. Okay, any questions?
My 2 cents worth to this because I'm select committee too, and if I could pass out one of those to each of you. I think, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we do have a problem with gambling in the state of Wyoming. And I think that the way you control gambling is to tax it. And that's the Revenue Committee. I would love to see that the gambling issue be part of the revenues scope of direction. I think it's important that that's how you can control the things that are going wrong here. I think my first thing was, I would love to see the taxes on the HHR machines on all gambling. We didn't even touch on the internet gaming problem. We don't even know how big that is. It's kind of in the basement, but that's a source of income too, besides HHR and the other gambling sources. I'm proposing that we have a gambling solution trust fund created that would address all addictions, not just gambling, but let's throw in alcohol and drug abuse and that. It would give money to law enforcement because there's going to be problems there with gambling, family services, and use this trust fund to address the problems that gambling causes in the state of Wyoming. And
Would that include Filibusters Anonymous?
yeah. So, and I guess I'm hoping that you would take up the gambling issue, and it's pretty in-depth topic. And as you know, Mr. Chairman, we were on that committee together, and we just barely scratched the surface of it. But I think we do need to gain control over what's going on in the state of Wyoming and gambling. So.
Committee, I think we'll do the educational part and look at taxing the HHRs during the interim, unless anybody has an issue with that.
Mr. Chairman, we're happy to come back for that educational piece and assist in any way that we can. Thank you.
We'll need all the help we can get.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hope to be here too. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, well, we'll move to Senator Case again.
Mr. Chairman, the next one is in the electricity area as well, but it's a particular tax on wind energy. It'd be a severance tax. And I don't know if you know that the governor mentioned this when they were discussing the land board had quite an exchange on wind leases, as you know, quite a bit of controversy back and forth. And the governor, at the end of that controversy, suggested that maybe because wind energy is so imbued with other than on the footprint impacts, that we should really look at it in a different way. And he suggested that maybe it is time to look at a severance tax on wind energy. It would account for the fact that we lose something really forever. You know, people talk about the life of wind turbines, but that's not relevant here. When you build a wind farm, you spend a lot of money acquiring the property or acquiring the rights to the property and permitting the property, building transmission lines to the property, building roads to the property, other facilities, and the transmission lines are an enormous deal that ends in this one point. So that property is extremely valuable for the production of electricity once all these infrastructure is in. The actual towers, blades, and generators are de minimis in terms of the overall thing. So they might wear out in 20 years, but then you look at the marginal cost or the incremental cost of developing new renewable generation, you're going to go right back to the same place because all that other infrastructure is there, and you're going to replace the blades, replace the towers, and just keep going bigger and better on the same footprint. And that will happen for generations. So the impacts that we see, they're not transient on our landscapes. They're permanent. And they are a permanent shift from what everybody viewed the big open of Wyoming as. And that's a loss to generations of Wyoming. That is a loss that they will never get back. Your grandchildren will never see the Wyoming landscapes that you saw. Never. Never in their lifetime. And I think they should be compensated for that, just like we compensate them for the fact that we sever the coal from the ground, oil and gas from the ground, that they won't have the opportunity to enjoy revenues from in the future. And so if we had a severance tax and we banked that and provided funding for future generations, that's a bit of compensation, but it will never equal what we have lost in this deal.
Committee questions? Anybody else?
Maybe he'd like to speak to the microphone.
You want to come forward? You kind of sound like Charlie Brown's teacher.
Brown.
The teacher.
I did stop by another committee and asked them to take a look at all of the, I guess it's management audit. Yep.
Will you please introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry. My God. Okay. I'm Kurt Meyer, Treasurer, Wyoming. I did stop by and ask the management audit to take a look at all of our lease agreements and when it's part of those lease agreements. Frankly, I don't think we're getting enough out of those lease agreements. I voted against one because I thought the money wasn't there. The other one had manufacturing on it, and so I could support that because there was enough income. But I agree with Senator Case that if we're going to have something, we might as well get paid for it. It's a resource. Other states don't probably have as much wind as Wyoming, and so we are losing some view shed and different things, and necessarily doesn't have a property right, but it does have an effect on everybody. So, I think there's plenty of room and profit in that industry that we haven't touched on. And I think it's a reasonable thing to go ahead and get some severance on that type of an industry. So I'll back you guys, as much as I can on that because, but I hope that we get some good stuff out of management audit because it's been a long time since we looked at what we're getting off of everything we're getting off of state lands. So we need to make sure that we, circle back on that. I think Representative Lean is on that one too. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay. We're still with Senator Case.
I think this might be the last one, Mr. Chairman. This concept is the idea that, okay, let's talk about property taxes and people that are on fixed incomes, that are elderly, that live in their homes, and they have property tax bills that have increased. 100% true. We've worked very hard to try to help them. But there's a basic underlying fact that the reason that their property taxes have increased is because the value of their homes has increased. Now, sometimes that's not fully in sync, but pretty much large and large, they live in a very valuable home and their property taxes are a fraction of the value of the home. And then the fraction is, the assessment ratio times the assessment rate, the assessed value. And so that is a very bankable proposition. We've had programs in Wyoming whereby counties can defer property taxes to the future so that you could come in and say, I can't pay my property taxes. And the county says, no problem, you qualify for this program. We'll catch the property taxes up in the future. What that really means is you catch them up when the home is finally sold. Trouble is, we had two counties that had it on the books and nobody was using it. And the reason nobody uses that program or wants to use that program is because you have to go to the government with your hat in hand. And you have to say, I can't afford my taxes. Can the government help me? And you go on a list and people know. And I don't think we really need to do that. We could actually encourage private industry, our private banks, to make loans to these people. And we could underwrite the loans, okay, with a superior lien on the property. And we could even do it in a way where the lien might not be actually very prominent. Are those jets? I don't know. But the issue is,
The black planes are in the sky.
Mr. Chairman, it would be a great deal for a bank. They could provide the program, and be assured that they're going to get their money. And the state could underwrite that whole effort
Snow removal.
with an authority, much like we have other pipeline authorities, whatever, to make sure that it's 100% guaranteed deal. And then for the person with the property tax, they just they get their check from the bank, they go pay their property taxes. The government doesn't know, the county government, they're just like anybody else standing in line to pay their property taxes. And so that's my idea. And I do have another close, it's not quite close, but there is also an issue. We have had property tax relief directed towards physical property. And we've tried to make it benefit Wyoming, but actually it's a narrow bunch of people that have been benefited by it. You've had to live in your house a long time. You've had to be elderly. You've had to perhaps have your house be within a value range, on and on and on. We're not really helping renters or other people. There's a way to do that if we were to provide property tax relief to vehicle property taxes. And that would help everybody. And if the committee's willing to listen, I asked Mr. Dan Noble, former director of the Department of Revenue, here on his own dime to come and maybe just visit about this idea for just a second. Is that possible? He put a tie on and everything.
Please.
He's a Riverton boy, Mr. Chairman.
We won't hold that against him.
I've learned to get along with that.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Dan Noble. I'm here representing myself as a concerned citizen. And even though I have been away from state government for a few years, I have watched to see what's going on pretty much in the legislature because it interests me. And I think that as citizens, we need to see what's going on in the legislature. One of the things that I noted was there was a very large effort to try to deal with increases in property taxes that have gone along, over the last few years. COVID probably had something to do with some of it, but property values have increased. My own have increased substantially. I'm actually a recipient of one of your programs as a long-term homeowner, and I appreciate it. I will say this, though, I don't need it. I just appreciate it because if you're going to offer it to me, I'm going to take it. I don't need it. My property value, I bought my house in 2009, and second house, and it has doubled in value in 15 years. And that's amazing because obviously my asset base has grown substantially just based on my real property. But I think one of the things that has been difficult is how do we reach people that are not real estate owners, obviously that end up paying property tax anyway as renters. And there is one area of property taxation where we would all benefit, and that is motor vehicle registration. No one actually, I believe that House Bill 30 was an attempt to try to address some of that this year. What I'm proposing is to treat that property the same as we do real property. You set the fair market value, and I believe that it's set as at a depreciated value, and then you apply the assessment ratio to that, which is 9.5% for a residential property, and then you apply the mill levy in place based on their residence to that value, and it creates a very large deduction. You're paying 10% of what you do today, and that, well, it's actually more than that because the assessed value or the mill levies are actually about double what the current rate is. It's 3% of a graduated scale. And this would basically say we're going to treat it just like we do all other property. It is the only place where we actually tax the property at 100% of its depreciated value, other than minerals. Minerals are taxed at 100% as well, but this is taxed at 100% of its depreciated value every single year. And the rates are arbitrary. 3% is just a number. The values are based on what you paid for it initially. You know, the trim levels and things like that go into it as well, but basically what you paid for it. And then it's depreciated over that time frame. What this would do is it'd keep the depreciation schedule in place. And all it does is it applies the assessment ratio of 9.5% to that value. And then it is taxed at the mill levy in place at the owner's residence. And I have a spreadsheet that I prepared that shows what the difference looks like. And I will say this, it's extremely expensive. I believe that I've worked with the Department of Revenue a little bit, and they did an initial kind of estimate of what it would be, and it's roughly $120 million. So it's a very expensive program, but it is the one area where we could provide relief to renters, people on fixed incomes. Virtually anyone that owns a vehicle in this state would benefit from it. And the one other thing that it does, I'm not sure whether you're aware of it or not, but when I was with the Department of Revenue, we were dealing with people who would register their vehicles in Montana under an LLC. Okay, they form the LLC, register their vehicle in Montana, and then drive around in Wyoming on Montana plates because of the fact that their registration fees are a fraction of what ours are today. And the thing is, this would actually align the property tax with what we do with all other real property at this point in time. It would be limited to non-commercial vehicles. Commercial vehicles today are taxed in a different method anyway. So it would be all non-commercial vehicles. And if Mr. Chairman, if you'd like, I can share this document with you folks. And it kind of takes an assumption of a $50,000 vehicle and what that depreciation or what that tax would look like over the years and what the potential savings would be if you were to do this. If you'd like, I can pass that out.
Take it over there and they will.
Okay. All right. And like I said, Mr. Chairman, it's a very simple program. It would provide relief to all citizens across the state that own a vehicle. I mean, granted, there are some that don't, but the fact is most of us do. I mean, most all residents do, and everybody would benefit it. There's no additional application that has to be required right now. I mean, as a matter of fact, this last week, I actually it was Monday, went to the county assessor's office to apply for the long-term homeowners exemption, and it's just part of the vehicle registration process. I think that Representative Riggins, I believe that you had presented a bill this year that actually lowers the depreciation schedule from its current 15% down to 5%, and that's expensive even. But what this does is it aligns that program with everything that we do with other property, the same exact assessment ratio.
It's funny you bring that up. That was a note I had to talk to the committee at the end for another topic. Eve, did we capture that?
I'm so sorry, Mr. Chairman. Can you repeat what you had said?
Property tax on vehicles?
I believe so.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Questions? Well, thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, just one point on that. We don't necessarily have to go the full enchilada. It would make sense to line it with all other residential property. But you don't necessarily have to go for the whole enchilada. You could go half an enchilada. Make it half the fiscal impact.
You know I love enchiladas in
That's
their
why-
entirety.
That's why I chose that example, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Riggins.
I was just giddy sitting here listening to him talk, so please hang around later.
Certainly.
Okay, well, thank you. Anybody in the audience want to comment on this? Let's move to Representative Chestick. What? What?
I think I made it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A nice segue to this topic. It kind of ties into the previous topic we were just discussing. One of the things that the good Chairman Locke was been saying in our chamber is that we've had a problem in the last 3 years really over trying to figure out how to provide relief for a problem that arose because of rapidly inflating property values. What we've done so far has been different versions of tax relief. And we haven't really considered tax reform. And what I'm bringing to you is what I would consider true tax reform. The difference between relief and reform is when you do tax relief, you're treating the symptoms. And when you do tax reform, you're treating the disease, which is the smarter way to go, I think. And my proposal, I think treats the disease, but it ties in very closely to what we just talked about from the prior topic. The disease is that when we have local problems with tax valuations going through the roof rapidly in some places, but not other places, the only solutions we have for tax relief are at the state level. And when the state has to correct a local problem with a uniform state rule, that creates problems in the counties that didn't have the issue. So for example, what happened, we all know what happened. Tax values in one county, several counties actually, but one county in particular, skyrocketed just enormously. And because the current system of taxation in Wyoming has to be uniform across the state, tax values, taxpayers in one county started getting double and triple their tax bills very rapidly, and they couldn't afford their own home. So we had to find a solution to that. The solutions, which were applied statewide, then hurt other counties that didn't have that benefit. And therefore we need, so they're being hurt. We're giving tax relief in counties that need the revenue more than the relief. So my proposal is based on my experience when I was a practicing lawyer in Pennsylvania. I actually served as the the legal counsel for a tax assessment office in Pennsylvania. So I'm familiar with the way Pennsylvania does tax assessments. And they do it on what's called a base year assessment. And it solves the problem. It actually provides actual reform and treats the disease. The concept is the county offices will assess property once and then freeze that assessment at that level for some period of time, 5, 7, 10 years. And so you have certainty that the rapid inflation does not affect your valuation at all. You're still going on the base year assessment. If the taxing body, of course, the taxing body's expenses are going up because of inflation. So the taxing bodies then have to have the ability to set their own mill rates to adjust for assessment, for increases in valuation. Now, there'll be some additions as houses are being built. Maybe the additions are enough to provide the revenue they need. They don't need to raise taxes, or maybe they do, but that's going to be a decision made by the local entity. And that solves the problem, right? So when local entities need more taxes, they can raise their mill rate. They're subject to, and if they go too crazy with that, they get voted out of office because they're the ones making the decisions, not the state. It's a local decision. So this provides local control to the municipalities, who are then subject to their own voters if they try and raise taxes too fast. And then every so often, every 5, 7, 10 years, whatever we would decide, there would be a comprehensive revaluation, a rebalancing, recalibration, maybe you want to call it. It's because,
excuse me.
yes.
Does anybody have any questions on the topic? We're actually covering the bill, kind of. You know what I'm saying?
So, yeah, but I'm just trying to explain the idea of the concept. So that when a revaluation happens, all the property values go up. There'd be a limitation on how much new revenue the the municipality could take out. So it provides a break on inflation. It provides local control. And it's a topic that it's a significant change to what we're doing now. So it would require a fair amount of study, but it does relate to a lot of other topics, and it treats the disease, not the symptoms. And I would like to see it'd be a long study, and an in-depth study could show. And there's all kinds of variations that we can talk about in the interim topic.
Any questions?
Something real quick.
Senator Ide.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, it's not necessarily a question, just on the last two topics. And you talk about the disease. I mean, I think the disease is in Washington with deficit spending. I mean, that's what monetizing that debt, that's what's causing inflation. Really, the values of the homes aren't going up. The value of our money is going down. It's across the board. It's nothing magical. I think that's the disease. And we're always playing defense, trying to counter that disease back there with the devaluation of our currency. And to me, that's the root and branch. And back to Senator Case's earlier one, and correct me if I'm wrong, it looks like to me, we kind of have a vehicle in reverse mortgages to address something that, that issue that you brought up there. I'm not a big fan of reverse mortgages, but that's a way for people to defend themselves against inflated real estate values. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, well, thank you. Chairman Locke.
I'll be real quick. This setting a base year concept, if you remember, Assessor Meyer, before he retired, he came up with some concepts similar. My simple man's thinking was taking a look at some of these things all together in terms of how they might affect us. But that was just some of the thinking, that there might be some pieces and parts that fit together pretty nicely, just to consider. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Case.
Mr. Chairman, I couldn't let it go. Senator Ide's comment about a reverse mortgage would do kind of the concept I was talking. I don't think it does. I think a reverse mortgage is like a sledgehammer, and just loaning people the amount of money on their property taxes is more like a little tiny tack hammer. And people are afraid of reverse mortgages. You got your uncertain life. They're afraid of them. I've explored it with elder relatives. It just doesn't work as well as you think, and it traps you in increasing poverty sometimes. So I would argue with him on that. He brought it up, so I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you.
We got a lot to cover, so I want to get through all the topics too. And we're starting to kind of discuss bills.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. Next topic is tax on tobacco and vaping. Ken Clouston. Is there anybody here to speak on that?
Oh, I was just, okay.
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Representative Lean.
For Representative Clouston, as I read through this, it appears that he was thinking that there should be some consideration given that the cost of healthcare going from tobacco and vaping, that the state needs to look at the taxes on both of those.
Any questions? Okay. I guess you're up again. Yours is kind of related to the other one, isn't it?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So there's several on here for myself. Excuse me, problem gaming and iGaming were some of them. I would say the iGaming needs to remain with whatever committee is going to oversee gaming as a whole. One that we haven't discussed is the penny guidelines. This was just to visit what other states are doing and to be able to give our some guidance to our vendors, that we don't end up with those that pay cash and those that pay with digital assets paying different amounts. I'm not sure that 5 hours is an adequate guess. It may be less than that. It may be more than that, but I think it's an important conversation we start to have with the Department of Revenue. The electricity generation tax on page 6, we've already covered. We've already covered problem gaming, and that takes us to Representative Locke.
Page 7. Representative Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Lean, what's iGaming?
Chairman, Representative Locke, it's games that are on your phone and that are on the platforms and how they're being targeted. Sometimes they're online casinos, and the Wyoming Gaming Commission has quite a challenge in regulating all of that.
Chairman Locke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'll go through these quickly. We won't waste a lot of time. As you all know, in my opinion, we are still, for lack of a better term, looking for property tax solutions, more of, let's talk property tax reform rather than property tax relief, which is a lot of what we've done. So I think several of the topics, even some brought up today, probably roll in under this, but it'll be to continue to look at those programs, including proposals like Senate File 110 and others. I think will roll in under that one. That's my proposal there. And then I'm going to hand over to the treasurer for his proposal on property tax credits for education.
All right, thanks, guys. I think the proposal is fairly simple, but you can make it as complex as you want it to be, you know? So I'll kind of give you the 30,000 deal here. The genesis of this is that I was up at a healthcare conference that Steve Forbes and his family puts on every year. We had the chairman, the CIO of Lilly, the CIO of AMB, and the head of research and development for Johnson & Johnson. And so I pitched him a tax credit that I thought would probably help, you know, in the relationship of actually of a business coming into the state and making sure that they had the ability to custom train their people. And the CIO of Lilly was, I think, pretty excited. He said, you know, this if you get this thing through, Kurt, let me know, because we need to actually in our deal where we do that GLP manufacturing and stuff, we absolutely have to have customized training. It's something that you're not going to pick up at a skill school or a community college or something. But I mean, they could maybe be implemented in those facilities. So and then I said, well, you know, there's a lot of things out there that why do we just have it for business? I said, well, let's look at the what we might be able to do to help people all the way from a homeschooler to the different private and religious schools and the different schools that we have out there, and really let basically democratize educational funding. And that's essentially what this does. And in that way, it's that you get just basically a 1 mil credit on your taxes. And there's different ways to pay for that. If you want to put a lot of, I guess, cat's tails in the doors, you let all the other taxpayers that are getting something, and you do a proportional rebate. That I think you could actually use for religious schools. The other way is just to do a simple appropriation. That appropriation, I think this year would have been 32.8. Coming into next year, I think it's 28 million because our assessed valuation has gone down. And so that's what happened when your assessed valuation go down, you know, you basically you have a lot less income. But essentially, it's just 1 mil for people to use for education. I think the conversation on education, if every property tax owner had the ability to direct that however they wanted, you'd see the conversation on education probably get to a level that we've never had in this state about how we can actually fix it. But this essentially lets people vote with their money on how they think education should be funded in a small way that would either affect them personally or their family personally, or an institution or a college that they want to help. Now, if the whole, 30 million or whatever isn't spent, it just gets reverted back to the general fund, or it never gets distributed out of any of the local government entities that would have that. So I don't think it's a binary. You either take proposal 1 or proposal 2. Maybe if you could do 5% on 1, 95% on 2, or something like that, But those are the details I think that you guys could work out. I guess the policy question is, do you want people in Wyoming to have the ability to actually vote with their money about what kind of education that they want, for their businesses and for their children?
Questions? Chairman Locke.
And it was interesting when Treasurer Meyer brought this to me because I've actually heard this at the door many times. Interesting. People saying, hey, we're fine paying our taxes, but maybe we'd like to redirect those to the school, or what school we'd prefer to be giving that to. I've actually heard this many times. So I thought it was interesting when he brought it to me, and I thought it was worth us at least taking note of. But thank you, Treasurer. Appreciate that.
You bet.
Any comments from the audience? Okay, let's move on. Alternate revenue streams beyond property taxes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just go quick. This is a normal thing that we do. I probably just threw this in here with who knows where my brain was at the moment, but we're doing that anyway. And so that's kind of a common thing that we're looking at constantly. So I won't dive into that. The next topic, sales taxes collection on ATVs and similar vehicles. I know this has been a discussion where there's been some issues with this, and this was actually brought last year. And if you all recall, we just didn't get to it. Kind of at the end of the day, we ran out of runway. So I brought it back for us to at least take a look at, because I do think there's still some issues with this, and I won't lie to anybody about not, I think, understanding all of the nuance here. But I put this up for people to consider if we've got time in this session. And then what was the last one? The last one's the whole governmental purpose. I do believe we need to take a hard look at that. The governmental purpose, what's the right taxation? This is, I think, related to the Uinta County case, but I think some others might be mentioned this one too. So I won't waste a lot of time. I think the body knows, or the committee knows this case pretty well. This one was another one that kind of made our list last year, and we talked a lot about it, but we didn't get to the point where we understood we had a good bill for it. So anyway, just wanted to throw that out anyway.
Questions, comments? Senate Representative Riggins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Addressing the Representative Pendergraft's deal on the ATV stuff, it was suggested to me, not by him, but by a dealer, when they sell a vehicle, and every one of them has to be registered, right? That's the law. Let them collect that sales tax at that point, and don't collect the sales tax from the dealer. One of the things is the dealer has to give them, even though it's not legal to use, they have to give them a dealer plate because of this, which the dealer immediately takes the stapler and smashes it all up so they can't actually use the plate, because they still have to give them that at a cost of a few bucks. And so they'd like to see that gotten rid of too. But I don't know if that would solve all these problems, but that was his suggestion. Just, we don't collect the sales tax. You collect it at the county level when they register the vehicle. Thank you.
Representative Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the only one I put on the list because I know we always seem to bite off a lot more than we can chew, so I'm taking it easy on you. We heard this bill in the House committee this session, and it was quite a large topic. And even though we passed it out of committee, was not considered on the Senate side. It's been a long time since we've revamped or even looked at our state liability and claims process, and the values, the top awards have not been reviewed or evaluated since the 80s, I believe. And I think this might be a good topic for us to consider, whether we should have tiered claim claim amounts and also types of claims, because not all claims are the same. And so I think this would be a good one for us to look at during the off season. Thank you.
Questions, comments? Okay. Moving along. Man, this guy keeps showing up. First one is a change to personal property tax. Right now, we depreciate it down to 20%. And then you pay 20% of it forever. I'm gonna push again this interim to let that go to 0. I have a dream to one day own my own meat grinder. The next one, eliminate residential property tax. We tried last time with a plan and it fell short. In fact, it fell flat on its face immediately. So we're looking at something different this time. And I got to get with Department of Revenue to work out some numbers. But the overall plan is to put a 2% tax on the sales of homes. So it's a tax you pay once, should replace most or all of it. And then we don't have to deal with residential property tax. So that's where I'm headed with that. And I put in the educational tax credit, but we've covered that and we'll leave that with Mr. Myers. Okay. And now we're going to hear from Bob Ide. He's got another proposed topic that's not on the list.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I passed this around earlier, or got it passed around earlier. It essentially, Troy and I, our Chairman McEwen and I had talked about this. I've had a few people email me stuff, and it looks like something that we really ought to take a look at. And as he referred, a 2% sales tax. I would call it a transfer tax on the sale of your real estate. So if you had a $400,000 home, and you sold it, you got a sales tax or a transfer tax of 2%, that would be what, $4,000?
8,000.
Or on a $400,000 house. Yeah. So in essence, that would be 4 years of property taxes. So just want to look at the numbers to see how that replacement could potentially work. There again, I'm with the good chairman here. If you ignore paying your property taxes, you'll soon find out that you really don't own it. So we're looking for true ownership here. That's it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, next one is linear infrastructure taxation. From Speaker of the House, Nyman. Please introduce yourself and take her away.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Jeremiah Riemann here on behalf of the County Commissioners Association. I bring you this topic. It's one that has been discussed to some degree around the legislature for a few years, but Speaker Nyman approached me before the session about linear infrastructure, and in that instance, pipelines that are coming into the eastern part of the state. And could we find a way to more appropriately incentivize that tax collection in Wyoming? As you may know, if you take delivery of linear infrastructure outside of the state or many other products, you would pay taxes in that other state. You would not pay that here. So it's also about how could we equitably distribute taxes amongst the counties that are ultimately going to see the installation of that infrastructure. So if you brought it into Niobrara County, sales and use tax is paid there, but it's being installed in Goshen, Weston, and maybe Crook counties. Could we find a way to ensure that all of those counties would benefit? I actually sat down with the Department of Revenue and a couple of the counties around this. We think we have a solution that we'd like to bring to you for your endorsement that would do all of those things, incentivize the taxes being paid here more equitably, distribute that, and do it in a way that doesn't propose any new taxes. So with that, Mr. Chairman, appreciate your consideration and happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Chairman Law.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just real quick. So this is really just collection and distribution of these taxes and taking a different approach to that. So for example, if it got purchased in one county but deployed elsewhere, there's some distribution function. Is that am I capturing this correctly?
Mr. Chairman, you're capturing a component of it, absolutely, but also trying to incentivize that payment in the state of Wyoming rather than, say, in Nebraska.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Dockstetter.
Mr. Chairman, Jeremiah, you got something an outline that we might have for a little deeper dive on this? What you say intrigues me.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I've got a little bit, but as I mentioned, we would like to bring a proposal to you that you could ultimately endorse. And we've had at least one meeting with the Department of Revenue, and I think we've got some ideas to do that. But yes, absolutely, we'll bring that to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Well, thank you. Representative Riggins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Of course, I touched on the same subject that we brought up last year about government use of state property and private enterprise. I put in a lot of details of it, what I expect we should be able to do. Creating definitions is one of the things we ought to be able to get done on what is government use and what isn't government use. How do we apply proportionality if it's shared use, and so on and so forth. So if we recall, we had a presentation from the former director of revenue on this very subject, and then we had a bill, and I think we tabled that bill and set it aside. So I think we should revisit it and actually at least take some actions on defining some of these things so they're not guessing what we're talking about. So that's the one subject.
Questions? Audience? Okay.
The next subject has to do with, I would like to invite Mr. Fanning to come up here and introduce this severance tax modified net back variations. So, thank you.
Been 10 years since we did that.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Brett Fanning, Director of the Wyoming Department of Revenue. This has been a topic that's come up as of recently, just based on the way that we're valuing, using this valuation method. And so with me, I brought Administrator Matt Sachet, and I'd like him to walk you through some of these items if we could, please.
Mr. Chairman, Matt Sachet. I'm the administrator of the Mineral Tax Division of the Department of Revenue. The issue at hand is that in one of our valuation methods that's identified in the statute called modified netback, the department is required to run a cap rate study and create a return on investment as a deduction for the oil and gas or the gas taxpayers. This is specifically to gas producers that also process their own gas. The issue we have is that it requires us to use the top 10 producers with publicly available information. And with the advent of LLCs and a lot of independent, we no longer have public information. We're starting to find ourselves digging quite deep into the weeds to try to find enough information. I have spoken with Director Don Richards about this, and it could be any number of changes that this committee may wish to make. As easy as just dropping it to 5, say, perhaps. But we would like to get it a little more stable in statute so we can administer it. And I'll stand for any questions.
Questions? Comments? Well, thank you, gentlemen. Next topic, Wyoming Choice Electric Program. Representative Smith.
I can speak to this one for Representative Smith. Let's see, where was it? Did I pass it by here?
Page 14.
Page 14, I'm a page up. Okay, perfect. So thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just a discussion on this one. This was a bill that was brought this year and it's related to a lot of the things that have been happening lately with the increases in electric bills and all of that. And the concept was that similar to what we do with gas, are there options similar to that? We would move away from kind of the model that we have and say, hey, maybe you have a choice, the choice on electricity plan. So it's very simply, for those of you who have choice gas, it would be something similar to that. And are there options there? That was the proposal, to where this environment where electricity taxes are being increased because of transmission being built to pump electricity out of the state in many cases, but certainly not, transmissions being built in many cases for a company says, hey, I need to build transmission to connect to this because I can sell it. And then all of a sudden the people pay those rates. That's been the problem, in my opinion. And basically this concept was to say, hey, creating competition, maybe it's a good thing. And I know it's not a simple topic, but it's one we thought we'd get started on. Thank you.
Questions, comments? Representative Riggins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I happened to work for that company that when created that choice program, and I wasn't directly involved in it in any way, shape, or form, but it wasn't as well received as people might imagine, and they continue. And well, what do you know? I didn't know if he'd want to talk about it briefly. I was scared to bring it up a little bit, so we'll let Mr. Bush handle it.
Mr. Chairman, David Bush with Black Hills Energy. Choice Gas is our program. It's only available in certain areas. It's not available here in Cheyenne for us. And so I don't know it as well personally, maybe as even Representative Riggins does. But the Choice Gas program, so basically you pick your provider of the gas. The pipes still belong to us. We still move everything. We're still the distribution utility for the natural gas. You just pick a different distributor or a different provider for the contract that you sign for the natural gas, but it's still just natural gas. I shared this bill when the draft bill came out this year with our folks, and their first thought was this would be a real administrative burden, and they weren't sure how to even implement it. Because we are a vertically integrated utility, we own a lot of our own generation. Our coal generation is owned by us. We use that for our customers down here. Our gas, same thing. So we would probably have to figure out a way with the commission to pull all that apart and figure out how to, if someone didn't want coal or gas, we can't ensure that they only get, say, green electrons to their house because all that power's on the line. So a lot of questions about how this would actually work and how we would be able to actually implement this beyond maybe just billing. And even then, we don't really know how the billing would work because of, like I said, the vertically integrated piece of it and the fact that we own our own generation and those customers have already paid for that generation. When we build a new generation, generally speaking, if we build new generation for our customers, they pay for it as it's amortized over the years. We get approval through the Public Service Commission for all that. So I think there's a lot of questions and a lot of uncertainty about how we would implement this if it did come to pass. So just some thoughts there. And Mr. Chairman, too, I'm not sure if anybody here has, Representative Riggins maybe touched on it. I get the sense that choice gas isn't our most popular product that we have out there. So,
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Case.
Mr. Chairman, I'm a big fan of choice gas in my own business, but we're a big gas buyer and it actually works out really well. It has to do with our load factors and but Mr. Bush, I kind of like to push back. You talked about how you can't administer this program, but for your large customers, you actually have this program now. They interconnect with Black Hills, they select their generation, you make sure they get it. And we often read in the paper how you've got a new big customer, but they've come with their own generation that you bring to them. And so if it's good for them, why wouldn't this be good for other ratepayers? And isn't the company kind of talking out of both sides of its mouth?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Case, I think the difference there would be that is one large customer that generally pay for all their own lines. It's in, say, Microsoft, they built a substation. They paid for a lot of the lines that the power is coming in. And yes, we are, say, giving them a certain percentage of renewables that we buy off the market for them. They also didn't pay for that coal unit or the gas unit because they're not using it. So I think that's part of the trick is figuring out if we're already charging, say, a residential customer who decides they only want renewables, but our model has based the charge for that natural gas plant that we built east of town here. How are we going to pull their charges out? And I'm way over my skis on rate making. This is just the message that I'm getting from my folks that they have real concerns about how we could potentially implement this, as opposed to the larger customers that do have almost a segmented line that we can provide that to. So it is possible. I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying my folks are really concerned about how they would do this and having just seen it and seen what the purpose of it is. So.
Any other questions or comments? Representative Riggins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Another element of that whole program was they were hoping they could share customers, like have if you had a big distribution system in the southern part or just to our south, maybe they would partner and they could all try to get each other's customers. That was a little bit of that behind that. It didn't really work out so much like that. So and plus you got a bunch of gas producers. That's a little bit different from the electrical generation standpoint for the processing part. So, you got 25 different gas producers instead of just having a handful of electricity generators. So it's a different market, in my opinion. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Anybody from the audience? Okay, let's move to the next one. Cash rounding rule. I'm going to take a stab at this. This is basically no more pennies, how we're going to round up or down. Did I pretty much cover it?
I think you nailed
it. Any questions or comments on that? Woohoo! think that was it. With that, we'll close. They're already doing it. We just need to legislate it. There you go. I gotta be quiet. We'll close public comment. Chairman Locke.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to propose that, I mean, we might have some discussion here today, but I'd propose that if you don't mind, we give ourselves maybe till Monday, give everybody maybe a 6 or a top 6, take the priority approach. Everybody can kind of prioritize their inputs. How does that, I don't know how the committee feels about that, but that's at least something I would propose. Oh, yeah, I guess we won't be here Monday, but let's just say that we get them into the chairman no later than say Tuesday, if that's acceptable with everybody.
Wednesday.
Well, via email or however you do it. If you could email them, it'd be great, but if Wednesday's the day, that's fine. But it was just a thought.
Senator Pappas.
Can we just expedite that and say by the close of today? I think we have enough time to, don't we?
Mr. Chairman, the Management Council meeting, when is the letter due to Management Council?
I don't think they've said that date yet, so we have some time. I don't know.
I think you got to let this cook and not rush it today. There's a lot going on today.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Representative Lucas, we got through everything last interim. Well, what we'll do is after we get the priorities set, we'll just list them out and we'll kind of use the time suggested. I think definitely believe we're going to need 3 committee meetings. Anybody disagree with that? We'll have the Memorial Kill Case Day. We have the dates out. We need to decide locations. Representative Lean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question would be, might you share those dates with the committee or does LSO have them handy? Can you?
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I do have the dates for the meeting if you wanted me to list those out now.
Please.
Our first meeting will be from June 8th to June 9th. Our second meeting is August 31st to September 1st. And our third meeting is November 12th to November 13th.
What was the middle one again, Ms. Chairman? August 31st. One more time.
Mr. Chairman, the first meeting is June 8th and 9th.
And Representative Lean was pretty adamant that one of them happened in Gillette.
I think that's great.
In Casper.
How about Gillette, Casper, Cheyenne? We work our way south.
Done. Anybody else have anything else? It should be a very interesting and fulfilling interim. Please.
You know, Senator Case's, I guess Senator Case's prospect, first Kurt Meyer, State Treasurer, Senator Case's prospect about a revenue source got me thinking about what I was thinking during the interim on these windmills is that we just have binary options. They're either in or they're out. And we don't have any option to actually mitigate any of the specific damages that you can actually score. And so I guess if you guys have an opportunity to look at that, I'd say let's look at first just, that the adjacent landowners. One of them, one was a guy that had like, say, 20 lots. You could sold the first 10 for 80,000. Then when the windmills come in, he's lucky to get 60,000. So you can actually score those things. If somebody's got problems with the lights at night, for $1,000, you can put on insulated blackout blinds. That's something that you can actually do. They're little things, but I think if you take care of the adjacent landowners first, and I was having trouble trying to find any fund that didn't, hurt somebody else in the deal. I thought it was reasonable for the counties to give some of it because they could get 100% of nothing, or they could get a percentage of something. But I think that Senator Case's thing with severance taxes might be a pool where you can actually address, some of the impacts that necessarily aren't in law. And I think if you keep it to the adjacent landowners, I think that's a good place to start. But just, for the conversation, if that one makes the top 6. Thank you.
Anybody else? So did we decide on a Monday deadline, Tuesday or Wednesday?
How about Tuesday?
You're done?
I'm 2/3 the way.
No, Representative Lean, we can't have 2 of the meetings in Gillette as much as I want to.
I'm on board with Senator Case proposal Tuesday.
Everybody good with Tuesday? And you can go beyond 6 topics because we're going to cover more than 6. So,
Mr. Chairman, yeah, I would also, I guess, suggest we look at the amount of time that people have provided us, because I do think, just looking through it, I think you're going to have some that are fairly quick. We have some that are, prior bills that I think can be discussed rather quickly, won't take a lot of time. But I do think there's probably the avenue to have more than 6 topics. A lot of those are interrelated as well, so.
do we still have people online?
We just have Miss Huxtable online currently.
Okay, let's bring her in.
Ms. Huxtable will be joining as a panelist. Whenever she's ready, she is good to unmute and turn her video on.
Mr. Chairman,
You can give it to us.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, can you hear me this morning?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for allowing me to testify this morning. Dixie Huxtable, Commerce County Assessor, talking on behalf of the Wyoming County Assessors Association. We just wanted to offer to be available on any of the topics to provide any information. Probably the first one that we have designated as something to consider is the governmental use discussion. That's been something that's been discussed several times. As you know, there's a court case involving that. Clearly right now, there is definition as to state lands and how we tax them if they're for agricultural use, but not for any other use. So there's a lot of moving parts in that governmental use description. And we would certainly be willing to share with you all the scenarios that we have out there across the state that would be implicated in that discussion. And then, of course, anything that has to do with property tax, whether it has to do with the wind turbine infrastructure or methodology or reform or changes, we are ready to stand there and give you any information that we can provide to help you with your policy decisions. And with that, I would stand with any questions.
Questions? Well, thank you, Mrs. Huxtable.
Thank you.
Representative Riggins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just guessing that maybe Director Fanning, them already have some ideas how they want to find some new calculations so that that topic wouldn't take long on the finding replacement for publicly traded pipeline transportation stuff.
Mr. Chairman, again, Brett Fanning, Director of the Department of Revenue. Representative Riggs, yes, sir. And just to echo Assessor Huxtable's comments, the Department of Revenue stands ready as well to help you with all of your efforts during their interim discussion. And so the governmental exemption, the governmental purpose, use, that's one of our administrative priorities as well. It's been a discussion for years. In addition to the cap rate and that calculation, and then the penny discussion as well, Mr. Chairman. That's one that retailers in every single one of your districts is struggling with right now. And just administrative clarity is a priority on their minds as well. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Questions? Comments? Okay. Think we're about ready to adjourn. And with that, we will adjourn this meeting. Y'all have a good day.